Bum, 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 Batman. Bum, 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 Batman. Batman. He's back again. Ladies and gentlemen, I couldn't be more proud to announce today's live chat. Welcome everybody to the COACHMC studio. Welcome creative community. Welcome entertainers, performers, actors, showrunners, directors, casting directors, all of you beautiful, creative, crazy people out there. Why are you here? I mean, do some normal things. No, jokes aside, this is exactly what we want to do. We want to be creative. We want to get inspired. We want to learn. We want to evolve. We want to self-develop. We want to get better at what we do. We want to try to reach summit points. We want to stay in touch with our culture. We want to learn from failures and mistakes, but also some important lessons can be drawn also from great success and from victory. So it's all part of the learning process and the system and the struggle that we're going through as creatives, whether we are starting out, whether we are seasoned actors or performers or entertainers, whether we are like starting a new career, creating a side hustle, thinking about going online, going viral, going opening up a second business, whatever it is. We're trying to be communicators with our art, with our passion, with our love, and integrate all the best systems that we can get from the material that we receive from our culture, from these beautiful people out there here on YouTube, in the theater world, out there for the musical performers. Art, it's surrounding us everywhere, and communication as well. So welcome everybody to the COACHMC studio. Welcome to this new live chat full of communication, full of great information. And it's an acting breakdown about the new Batman. It's really like also coming back to the roots of this new era of entertainment industry, because the Batman, in a way, in 1989 with Tim Burton, opened up new frontiers to the marketing, to the merchandise. It kind of reminded people back then to what a couple of years before, 20 years before, happened to George Lucas in the Star Wars franchise. It kind of revitalized a new branch of Hollywood and kind of blossomed up in new studio facilities and new jobs and a new dimension of movie making and creating, also inspiring the creative communities out there, the respective nerd communities. And I was definitely part of that community. So everybody, welcome here at the COACHMC studio. Such a great pleasure to welcome Annie Boo. Hello, Lorraine. Hello, Annie. It's great to have you here on the show. Krista Pelkonen. Hey, from Finland. Beautiful. Nice to have people from all over Europe, from all over the world joining the show, talking and exchanging and learning and getting entertained, maybe as well a little bit. Rosita Macarons couldn't miss the show. I'm really curious how you do this and how you manage that. It's so beautiful that you're always teaming up with us. Thanks so much. Big shout out to Rosita and Daniela Gregor. Hello, Lorenzo. Hello, Daniela. It's great to have you on the show. Today, we will talk about the Batman, the history of the Batman in a way, but also to what Hollywood represents right now with the Marvel franchise, with the Star Wars franchise, and all these big marketing campaigns and all the business that is derived from these movies. In a way, the Batman back then in '89 started this new era. So it's kind of part of entertainment culture. It has become like almost like a contemporary myth in a way. Like the story of the Batman has been told so many times through so many different and various outlets and services. We think about the animated series that is absolutely fascinating as well. We think about all the games that have been put out there that are truly like entertaining and also great to play. Like Arkham is an amazing game. And we are also talking about the series and Gotham, so many related products. Batman spawned out to inspire so many different fields of creativity, also giving birth to so many different adaptations. And this, what we are calling now, I mean, that a comic book could be adapted to a movie. It all kind of started with the Batman. So what we now are giving, what we are now considering like giving knowledge and absolutely like standard business is kind of if you think about it, kind of all started back then. And so it was interesting to see that if you have such a long period, so many different fascinating ways of telling a story, so many different aspects that you can tell, the perspective of the different characters, because it's like mythologies, like Greek mythologies, like every mythology. When you kind of have such a timeless story, you can always retell that story from different point of views, with different techniques, with better technology, and maybe more insight about the source material, and better creative heads creating better characters and all that. So it also teaches us a lot about acting, about entertainment industry, about how we can always use our craft to reinvent ourselves. I think Batman teaches us also like about how important it is to create compelling characters, how important and how fundamental it is to always search for deeper and deeper layers inside of yourself when you are a creator, a performer, or an entertainer. Every time you're creating a new piece of art, every time you're putting some you're putting your message out there, every time you're making something for people to see, to get perceived by the audience, we always have to search for deeper and better layers of ourselves to illustrate as transparent, as direct as possible what your message is all about, because that will make you in a way self-aware of your art, and it will give the audience the most sincere and truthful impact, and kind of extract, right, of what your art is what your art is all capable of. So when you have that type of interaction going on between the culture, between the ones who are perceiving the culture, the ones who are creating them, and then you have that feedback loop, because over time, of course, game culture and all these beautiful game conventions, role play games, and the cast game going on, they all contributed to make the Batman culture bigger and bigger. And everybody has his own, personal view, his own personal aspect of what, and every, opinion on what and how and why Batman should feel and look in this or that way. I'm sorry. So it always tells us a story about what is also going on in this in society, when society is facing a certain period. The media and the entertainment reflects that automatically, so you can also always compare the timeline with the movie output and kind of see what kind of phase society was going through at that given a moment in time when the movie was coming out. And every time we see a new performance like that, there's so much output that we can get and use for our own purposes, and understand how beautiful sometimes our craft can develop out of a single idea from one single human being, creating that comic book, writing down stories, to launching them. Back then it was 1943 when they shot their first TV series. Then it was, of course, 1966 with Adam West, the legendary and iconic Adam West. Watch one of the older episodes with Adam West. They are just amazing. The things that they do there, the freedom that they have, the behavior that they put on, it's amazing. It's still Batman, but it's completely, I mean, it's a child of its time, right? And then we jump forward to the 89 event when Tim Burton created this very dark, um, very Metropolis, Fritz Lang's Metropolis style like shaped world, right? These high rises that are completely obfuscating the sky. Everything seems so endless and so without any boundaries. And at the same time, it was this claustrophobic type of feel. Everything was so tight and so driven by the sheer greed and full of corruption and dirt. And at the same time, Tim Burton managed something quite amazing. He put the comic element into it. So everything had a certain distant feel to it, but it still was very real because the actors were so good. Talking about Kim Basinger, talking about Jack Nicholson, talking about, of course, Michael Keaton. They all played so well with each other. And Michael Keaton, even though you wouldn't deem him to be an action star, still today when I watch the older movies, the Tim Burton movies, Michael Keaton is totally believable as a fighter and as a warrior, as a stealth warrior, absolutely. And he's totally believable, of course, as Bruce Wayne. So why is the Batman so important for us actors? And what can we get out of this character? What can we learn from that character? And what can we implement for ourselves? And how can we use some of these informations to kind of evolve for ourselves as creators? It's a split character. It's somebody who lives two completely distinct, separate lives, right? And one life feeds off from the other one. It's a crazy inside going trip that never ends, that never stops, that has many, many questions and regrets. And both characters incorporated in one single person are constantly fighting against each other. It's a bit like Mr. Jekyll and Dr. Hyde. No, it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or the other way around, right? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm a fan of Tim Burton, Carola Pinker, Great Awakening. Welcome on the show. Yes, I'm big fan of Tim Burton, and his early work especially was amazing. So you have a very archetype type of character when we're talking about the Batman, like the Joker, the split characters living two distinct lives. The one is covering the other. The one is operating in the dark. The other one is operating in the limelight, because Bruce Wayne is thought to be some playboy type of masquerade playing extravaganza that hides his dark vigilante, dark at night vigilante activities. So we have yin and yang, darkness and light. Here in this new movie, it's one character because it is just a Batman. Bruce Wayne vanishes away. He flees from our eyes. He's always kind of disguising himself, not comfortable being Bruce Wayne and not attending those fancy parties, not, playing that playboy type of lifestyle just to cover up the night activities. No, he's just the Batman. And we're seeing, I think, the most Batman screen time in all of the history of all the Batmans that have been put out there since '89. I mean, it's just the Batman all the time, investigating in this crime story. And we're getting into the nitty-gritty of the acting in a couple of seconds. But I just want to kind of touch back upon the most interesting part about this character and why it is so important for us actors and entertainers and performers and comedians, I think, as well. Because the one that is acting out, the one that is, putting in the action to fight crime, when we're talking about the Batman, right? That dark force that lives within Bruce Wayne because of his childhood trauma that we all know now, and gratefully and very happily, this childhood story, this origin story, wasn't told in this movie, because we already know it is established. It's an urban myth. Everybody knows what the Batman is and what his story is all about and where he came from. So it wasn't told in this movie. We already know the Batman has been around for 2 years. He's established. Everybody knows what he's all about. And that, I think, is a great and smart move, because now we can see the Batman more often and longer, because he can move more freely, right? We don't need to see the transformation. That is kind of a nice trick on how to resolve the story. It's not just a nice trick. It's just a decision on how to jump into the story directly without any, overture. So when we're talking about a character that lives within a story that is demanding and at the same time it is also covering, right? We are not just following what the author is giving us. No, we have to put on two distinct characters, and they need both to work at the same time. They need both to show the full skill set of abilities that every and everybody needs to withhold, otherwise it's not believable. And sometimes when we look at the older Batman movies, the emphasis was to make money, to blow up things, to put on a big show. And we're talking about the Joel Schumacher. I mean, he's a great director, but what he did back then, 92 and to 95, it was just about, you know, having Batman exploited for a big action movie, where instead the great thing about Batman is that actually he's a detective. And for the first time, when we're thinking about all the movies that have been produced, the story kind of puts a heavy emphasis on the detective work. Then we can of course discuss if that was resolved in a proper way or not, but it's the first time that really they focused on, like, how would the Batman actually solve a case? What will his procedure be? Because when we're looking at Tim Burton, Michael Keaton was about crime fighting per se, big fighting action scenes and fighting crime en masse. When we're looking at Christopher Nolan, looking at the really worthy material, I would Joel Schumacher. I mean, it's not really believable what he put up. So I would just say Tim Burton was a milestone and absolutely the founding father of that franchise. And then Christopher Nolan took it to the next level by being very believable, very realistic, with a very twisted story and great actors. And there, in the Nolan trilogy, it wasn't about crime fighting. It wasn't about saving the city, saving the people. So these two characters, again, they had a different mission, a different core principle, based upon they were acting out, all their scenes. In the beginning, for Michael Keaton, it was, I fight crime. This is my mission here. I don't have to ask any questions. I mean, it's clear. These guys, they need to be, weeded out. In Nolan Saga is about, it's more about the moral aspect of society and how society works, and what the Joker kind of, what part the Joker plays in that kind of very subtle and very fragile balance, right? Where everything kind of very fastly can tip into the direction of chaos, or back into safety and stableness. So it's a story about the principles of humanity, of society, of living together, and how to keep that balance, right? And the Joker asks us the question about our sanity and how our moral statues are. So we have two different types of approach. Now we have an approach where I feel they have gone a step further. It feels like being a graphic novel. It's more a comic book that is being told and illustrated on screen the whole time. He has this detective work going on, and he interferes and interacts and is everywhere, all over the city, whether it's Bruce Wayne investigating or it's him, the Batman, being present on the crime scene, where he's trying to find the key to the solution, to crack the case that the Riddler is a central part of. And there are several other characters with whom he interacts. There's, of course, Catwoman, there's Commissioner Gordon, and there is the Penguin. In a way, it's an incredible interpretation by Colin Farrell. But what I want to say overall is, if you look at the first Tim Burton Batman adaptation, this triangle of Kim Basinger and Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton was just, it was just incredible, right? These three actors were doing something quite amazing. And in the second movie, we had Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito and Michael Keaton again, and that was amazing as well, because Michelle Pfeiffer was stealing the show. She was mind-blowing, so elegant, so creepy also. And now we, in the Nolan movies, it's way more realistic and very more grounded. But now I feel like it got back into the comic book niche. It got back into the graphic novel corner. It's all dark and warm orange, so you have the constant feel that the city is burning. You have the constant impression that everything is dirty and funky, and whether it's dark and night or it's burning. So maybe the night and the darkness is just the ash raining down. That's the feeling that you get from this movie. And when you think about the maturity that every actor needs to step into a role where he's playing those twisted type of characters, like the Joker, Heath Ledger, Jack Nicholson, uh, showed us in a magnificent way how that can be kind of portrayed. And the same way, the maturity that you need to portray Bruce Wayne, this chevalier, this dark force, this dark romantic force that wants to save the city and the people, and that sacrifices his life on the altar of that night activity that he just can't stop pursuing day in, day out, night in, night out. He needs to be out there. He needs to watch. He needs to see. He needs to defend. He needs to protect. It's an addiction to him. So he would never stop doing that. Everybody, the signal appears, the sign shows up, the beam is projected into the night sky. He knows he's needed and he needs to be there, because back then, when he was a child, he would have needed someone to step in and to protect his parents, but there was nobody in this very dark and left alone and very dirty alley. And so he had to watch and observe and see point blank his parents die in front of him. So he took on this oath, this armor, and Bruce Wayne died the moment he saw his parents die in front of him. I think Bruce Wayne vanished away in that very instant. So he kept on living with that wish, with that urge, with that feel to do something, to kind of liberate that anger, that power, that upsetness, and kind of correct the course of time in a way. It's a it's a very bold move, very egocentric, you might say, but it's a mission that somebody in desperate need for a meaning in life has to kind of come up with. Otherwise, you just go mental and crazy. So we can understand Bruce Wayne. And what I was trying to put in words beforehand is exactly that. If you have that type of drivenness, that type of urge going on inside of yourself when you're playing out your character, and at the same time your character is split in half and it has to go into two directions, red and blue. And sometimes the red questions the status quo of the blue, and sometimes the blue questions the status quo of the red. Because sometimes in your private life, when you play a character like that, sometimes something comes in, in the way. It stands in the way of you, the human being that you are, that can also feel and love somebody else. Now really being able to do both things, to have the responsibility of somebody you might love, somebody you might find along your way, and that person gives you also a reason to stay home. But you have to stand up and pursue your duty. You have to finish your mission. And no matter what, that urge needs to be fought. So you have to decide whether or not your demons can be on your side, whether you can come, you can set cross with them and finally understand what you're about, or understand what the other character also needs, like you being home. Sometimes somebody interferes with your mission, and it's about you, the character, to decide where to go. Of course, it is given by the script, but you have to show us why you do it. What is your motivation? What drives you to say no to somebody that you love in order to pursue your mission, your quest? And what are the conflicts that are being born out of that situation that is given by your choices? Because it's about bold choices. It's about to make a statement. People, your audience, wants to see a statement. And here, Matt Reeves with the Batman, because it's just the Batman. This movie is, like I said, Tim Burton lives from many actors. The Tim Burton Batman lives from many actors, from many aspects, and Nolan lives also from many great actors. His trilogy is, wow, this is just a plethora of great actors being involved in the making. Like if you think about a making of the Christopher Nolan trilogy here, even though we have some really respectable actors in the game, I mean, John Turturro is there, some other great actors, of course, Zoe Kravitz, and you name them. They're all beautiful, but this movie is all about Robert Pattinson and him being the Batman. And what Robert Pattinson does is quite interesting because there is not a lot of emotional oscillation going on throughout the whole movie. He's very concentrated and focused. There's a lot of stillness going on, but still you can see through his eyes that he's thinking. And that's what I was trying to refer previously. When I see that something is going on because you're trying to decide what the right thing is right now, even though you're driven, even though you have your mission, even though you have to go somewhere, still questions will arise. And think about what I always say. The audience wants to wonder why you're doing certain things. The audience wants to think about, like, would the audience do the same thing? Would the audience really go out at night and miss out on something amazing with somebody, or with your environment where you're safe and know, and where you really have to risk everything? What is the relationship that the audience has with the character? So when we are asking ourselves how we react because our character is inclined to that, and then how we show that, and our eyes are always thinking about whether or not to do it, that's not because we are questioning the mission, but we are kind of evaluating how to react in this very instant in order to progress furthermore into the story, into the action, into the believability of the character. And here I have to say, Robert Pattinson did quite an amazing job, because he stayed that for the whole duration of the movie. And thinking about the scale of this feature, thinking about the magnitude of the shots and all that, I must assume they've shot quite a while on this flick, and staying so focused and so concentrated and so weird and so fortunately different and so abstract to this whole matter, like Robert Pattinson displayed throughout the whole movie. That is quite an achievement. People might like it, might dislike it. For some, it might be too monolithical. For some, it might be perfect. It really doesn't matter. He believed what he was doing, and that is a great thing that we can learn from Robert Pattinson's performance. Being in there, making bold decisions about your character, knowing exactly what your mission, your urge is, but never forget to evaluate in every second and every instant what the best thing to do actually is, in order to progress, in order to put your character forward, in order to fight the enemies, in order to overcome the obstacle, to think about what the solution is right now in the moment. That's what great detectives, great investigation is all about. Whether or not you might deem the story to be, kind of standard in a way, fed up with beautiful details. And of course, like when we think about Paul Dano and Zoe Kravitz and Jeffrey Wright, all these people were contributing in a pretty amazing way to make this whole thing more believable. Of course, you can create always better stories, but I think it is a comic adaptation, and as such, it doesn't need to be perfectly logic or totally complicated and overly stratified and whatnot. It needs to be driven. It needs to show us what the character is about. It needs to allow everybody else to kind of shine and to kind of take a stand inside of the story and show some great action and keep people, fastened to their seats, so they are curious about how the story evolves, because we constantly ask ourselves, like, what is happening next? What does this clue mean? What is he thinking right now? And that's what, great entertainment can also be, about. Like, pulling someone into a film noir is such a difficult task, because film noirs usually have a very slow burn. Things are not happening very hastily, fastly. There are not many speed cuts. So you have to kind of balance out the storyline, the plot, and also some action scenes when you have a big budget. Like here, we have some really great action scenes. We have some very interesting new shots that we saw, and we have believable characters kind of performing them and rolling them out. So it's nice to watch them. But overall, it was more about how the story evolves and what actually is going on between the Riddler, between Catwoman, and Corleone and Falcone, interpreted by John Turturro, is an actor that I absolutely love and adore. And he was also like a very believable and very, you know, kind of, yeah, he was playing someone that was on like a mobster. It's like a cliche role, of course, you would say. And there are some layers to every mobster, what his motivation is. John Turturro was playing such a laid back character that was very, very scary in some ways, because everybody was so believable in the context that he already was absolutely, at some point you could really see the power that he had, that in his eyes, it was, even though it was behind some shades, um, it was shining through. I'm in charge here. And what I liked about all the characters and how they interacted with each other, that the body language of each character was well kind of carved out. Everybody had its own kind of signature way of behaving, of moving. Everybody had its own little details. Somebody was limping, somebody was very elegant, somebody was more bold and more frightening, somebody was more clumsy, and everybody had its own distinct signature way of behaving. So the body language was very on point, and I like that. It's about jumping into a story is a bold move, and what they did in a certain way succeeded. Because if you think about this, there is this old rule in Hollywood: when you are writing a pilot, you first write the first chapter, you write your first pilot, and you write down everything that you deem necessary, that should be absolutely included in terms of information, and what you like to see in that first movie, in that first pilot, in that first chapter. And then you take that and you put it in a drawer, and you close the drawer, and then you write the second one. And usually that's the one that will be produced. That's the right pilot, because already you are in the story. Already everything just happened. The origin's been told. You know exactly all the necessary information, and you act upon as if everybody is already acquainted with the environment. And sometimes that's the winning move, because sometimes we take it for granted that we have to explain so much. And sometimes, if you are just jumping into a great environment, because already the setup is so strong and so believable, we don't need that much of an explanation. That was also like a point that I had with the Catwoman character. If you think about the comic books, the fascinating part about Catwoman is that she shows up, and then she stays as long as she wants, like a cat always does. A cat doesn't need an explanation. I'm a cat owner, and I know exactly she doesn't need any explanation. She shows up. She wants food, she eats, and then she goes and she disappears. That's how a cat works, and that's so beautiful about cats, because they have they have their own character, and they're very mysterious. And Catwoman is all about that, showing up, helping with her moral standards, with the way she perceives Gotham City. Because Gotham City, again, coming back to character creation, splitting up your character implies that absolute knowledge about how both are kind of working against each other and how they are helping each other out as well. But the context in which they are both placed is of course very important as well, because that's what they perceive on a daily basis. So that influences the character a lot. And here, when you look at Robert Pattinson's style of walking, his body language, the way he was, his style of moving as Bruce Wayne and as the Batman, it really tells the story of Gotham City. It's a projection. For every character, Gotham City means something else. Everybody perceives that city in a different way. Everybody wishes to kind of take something out of Gotham that is always different. There are a lot of different wishes and a lot of hopes and frustrations and a lot of turmoil surrounding the city. And everybody wants something else from the city. And so when we're looking at Bruce Wayne, that body language that he tells, shying away, fleeting, kind of hiding from the limelight and just wanting to be Batman, because in the Batman he was feeling all right. He was feeling alive. He was feeling like he was really the person he is supposed to be. And that was very clear, and I think also nicely done by Robert Pattinson. If you think about also Paul Dano and his way of showing the Riddler and interfering in social media, and the message that he was also kind of portraying and displaying in the manipulation of the media, and how that kind of changed his body behavior, and the armor that they gave them, this very disturbing looking suit, this armor, this mask that he had on, very grotesque, very frightening, very creepy, very, yes, disturbing. It's great how he moved. So I loved how they kind of arranged that everybody had it's you could tell just by the way how they were moving, what type of characters they were playing. And that is, I think, some groundwork that was done by Matt Reeves and the amazing crew behind this film. If we think about Greg Fraser, cinematographer of this incredible project, he also shot some episodes of Mandalorian. If you think about, again, like the mood, the color, how that drives the story slowly forward, how you feel like you've been burned throughout the story, like you feel like part of this heat, of this dirt. And that was a very nice aspect to this movie. It was the palette that they chose was very coherent throughout the whole flick. You could say that's lazy, but actually I don't think so. They had some colors in there. They had some own perspectives in there. And Gotham City is like a character itself. Gotham City is as important as Batman, because that's the environment the Batman perceives. If you think about Othello, he perceives Venice. And he's, of course, influenced by everything that Venice does to his system. The way then he was manipulated by Iago is just based on, because he was constantly living in this, sinking city that was deemed to death since its birth, because, the builders knew one day the city is going to be down underneath the water. But nonetheless, they wanted to build something so amazing that everybody just would fall in love and awe, and just would never love to leave this place because it's just so beautiful. That is where Iago and Othello and Desdemona, where they are living. So they're perceiving this environment. Gotham City stands for a dramatically and drastically different environment. As actors, we should always ask ourselves when we get called into the room, what kind of environment am I playing this out? Don't take it too granted, and what kind of environment the scene actually takes place. Some of the producers and directors in the room present might want to see that, like, hey, can you show me a little bit how this actually kind of, what it does to you that you are in this situation, in this room, where you have to imagine to be. And that can give us also a great tool and a great force when we don't need to speak, because our body can speak for itself, because it's just reacting to the environment, the character, the imaginary life is placed in. Then you have great possibilities of expression without saying anything. And if you don't do that, if you don't take that in, you're wasting potential. That would be a shame. So here I think they've done also a great job. Stephen S.M., Christian Bale. Yes, Christian Bale was amazing. but it was a different story. It was a different Batman. And every time changes, the Batman changes. Here, I feel they have done great work on putting a heavy emphasis on the investigation, on searching for clues and answers. The story is not perfect; it's pretty standard, but nonetheless, it's good. It drives you forward, and the characters are playing like nicely with each other in some scenes. Finally, I see Commissioner Gordon. It could have been done better, but still, finally I see Commissioner Gordon just not sitting somewhere and just standing, close to the light beam at night. He's kind of taking part in that quest, protecting the Batman sometimes and pushing the story forward and investigating and pretty much solving the case alongside, not really solving the case, but working on the case alongside with the Batman. So that was interesting to see. Matt Reeves went into some directions no other director went in beforehand, and it was I think the right choice, because there is so much about the universe of Gotham City and what it stands for, this own character. I think they have immense possibilities and also great chances of going a bit more into depth on how the city actually is and what it looks like in further movies that might come up and following features. And when we are looking at the overall atmosphere that seems to be very dark and depressed and kind of tired of being always kind of in between those forces of good and evil, where you can't really distinguish where evil ends and good actually starts, when you're always in that flux and that constant vibration of being unsecure and unsafe, what it does to the characters. I think overall that was displayed very well as well, and every character was kind of uneasy throughout the whole movie. There were some moments where you could actually see, like, this is what Gotham does to the people, how they move, how they perceive, what they look like in a town like that. So that character was brought to life, in my opinion, in a different way, but still it was there, it was present. And it's a start, it's a good beginning, it's a way of telling a story, and they did some great entertainment. The score could have been probably better, but this is not about scores and little details here and there. It's about what stories can do to the characters and how characters can behave in a certain way, and to explore why they do that. Why does the Batman investigate relentlessly? What's his driving force? How is he reacting? What can we learn from that? What can we perceive from all these different facets of always asking this eternal question: is this morally upright, what I'm doing here? Like acting outside of the law to correct the law, to to have an own jurisdiction going on in a way that, in a way, I'm the executioner, I'm the condemner, I'm the one who's calling out on you or who's investigating. So there is this world of a separate law embedded in a world that has its own law, and it acts out of these boundaries and in between those boundaries and outside of those boundaries. And every time the character crosses these boundaries, it needs to ask himself, why is this okay? Why am I doing this? Is this now really, is this still part of the initial concept, or am I losing sight of what my initial intention was? And being always in this flux, in this never ending loop of questioning if everything is right, if I could have done enough, if what I'm doing is actually bringing some actual and tangible change, if people are reacting to me in a positive way, if they really understand what my mission is, if I should clarify that even further to the people, if they are just understanding it because they see what the reaction is, they see the results. Or is this all doomed because it's just me and I'm not the law, I'm just a single human being who's trying to change things? Or am I really an inspiration for someone else, anyone out there who's in a way inspired by what I'm doing to kind of make that change come true for himself and his environment as well? And that's the never-ending question of the hero. Is the hero entitled to overstep certain boundaries just because he's the hero? And in order to let him do that, we take something back and support him so he kind of resolves the bigger problems for society. Is that really all right? Or should we take more responsibility over our actions, over our environment, over our society, and make things better by finding consensus and avoiding fight and quarrel and struggles, and making society a better place to live in for everybody, so everybody could fit in? Where do we go from here? Is it us that do we need a cure, and he's he the cure, or are we just not able to cure ourselves, and we will constantly always be in search and in need for someone else? Or do we take accountability for what we need to fix and solve it once and for all? Because at the end, the great thing and the great metaphor about the Batman is that he's a human being just like us. He just dresses up a bit differently, but otherwise he's a human being. So what he can do, theoretically, we can do as well. So do we understand him as this leading light, as this guiding light, as an example, or we are still in the fright modus, and we're still not able to perceive why he's doing what he's doing? Because if we, as an audience or as a human being, like, we are always an audience, if we perceive that something is fundamentally right, and that we can help that person to understand that what that person has done is fundamentally okay, because we deem it right, because we understand that is right, we feel that is the right thing, then we must act upon that. We can't go back to our lives anymore, to how they were, to the Truman Show, and pretend that hasn't happened, or I didn't have that epiphany. No, 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 no. And then we're just going back to the normal status because we're just too lazy or too frightened by acting out on that. So if he's the leading example, we have to follow up on that. So maybe the thing that he should cure is not us as a society like a disease, but to understand that we're just lazy, and to act upon that, and to motivate us in the right way to do that. And that's what we're trying to do here at the COACHMC studio as well, of course. So if you're here for the first time, you're listening this brand about Batman and characters and screenplays and actions that we can take as actors for the first time, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and welcome everybody again in the chat. And let me know if you saw the Batman, if you like what you've watched, or if you haven't so far, if you plan to do it. I definitely could encourage you to watch this movie. Absolutely, go out there and search for the next theater and sit in there and just enjoy this movie, and understand, like, wow, this is how entertainment can look like. Sometimes it's not perfect, but it's entertainment. It's kind of interesting what they did with the characters. They tried to really give everybody his forum. Maybe that was even too much. When we think about Catwoman, again, like, she's the cat, she's appearing and then disappearing. That's the mystery about her. We want to wonder why and where she's coming from, and where she's got all these moral standpoints. Of course, we can tell an origin story like we did with Tim Burton, but in the end, it's kind of nice to have characters that are vanishing away. We don't need big attachment to big sentimental or emotional driven stories, not all the time, to understand certain characters and appreciate them when they're embedded in the story. Again, when we are playing as a character, somebody who's split, and that is embedded in another story, then of course, if we tell everything about that character, then it's just a biopic about that character. What we love to see is how that character interacts with the people in that giving reality, in that giving circumstance, and then wonder why he's acting out like that. And maybe the character is also giving us some clues that we haven't really picked up upon. And that kind of shows then back when we're looking to the movie that we just saw, and think, now I understand why he did that. Wow, that was interesting, right? Or you understand it right in the moment, and then it's also nice because you are more interested, invested in going on with the search and going on with the quest and sharing this quest with the main character or the other character that you're pursuing right now in the moment. So it is, I think, one of those fundamental roles that we can play: the Batman, the Joker, Mr. Hyde, all these twisted personalities. They're giving us such a nice playground where we can really use a variety of skills, different tools on how to achieve that perfect separation. In a way, of course, we already do that. We are playing different roles throughout our life, and they have all their different aspects, their psychology, their motivation. So we can, of course, just say no, no, no. We just, I'm used to that, so I know what it feels like playing different roles and always shifting and always changing. Yes, but when you put them in one character, and then this character has to actually hide his identity, but still work in the confines of society. Because if he just works outside, then he's an outlaw. But he needs to work inside of that confines. So the character needs to understand those confines. The environment has to kind of react to that, and still keeping the mission alive, that fire bundle alive. And now you are the one who is really the puppet master here. And that's a nice work. That's something really amazing. And because it is a role that gives you, like Hamlet, like Macbeth, like so many important roles that you can play. It gives you the opportunity to really kind of fabricate something new, fabricate something unique. And here I feel, yes, here and there, everybody has the freedom to interpret certain things from the comics and change them and twist them. That's not really the issue here. Everybody has its own view, his own art, and his own expression, and that's beautiful. It's always a reflection of the time on which the movie is placed in and where it's shown when it's aired. So for me, that's fine. I don't have major issues with that. It just, as long as the actors, as long as everybody has the possibilities, of course, if they want to have them, if they want to do that, to explore its own boundaries and to explore its own worlds and to go there and really portray something unique. I feel here they have tried to put something out where you open up a window to Gotham City, and instead of getting introduced to Gotham City like in the previous movies and establish the context and the mythology and the narrative, so you understand all the characters, their derivatives, and how they interact with each other. Here, it was already given. The pilot was already in the drawer, and here we have the second chapter being the first chapter. So it's like opening up a window. It's like a Thursday, a Friday, a Saturday in Gotham City. This is what happens here every day. It's a mess. And that was quite interesting. It was a nice choice of doing that and already giving it out as a habit, as something that occurs all the times, right? This is like everyday Gotham City. And you had this overarching character, Gotham City, reigning over everybody, but still not being the first subject that you meet. It was the characters, it was the story and the darkness. And that was beautiful. That was really nice, nicely shot. Um, Characters that are split are in a way badly damaged. They are they are split because something hurt them. There was an impact. Bruce Wayne had to see his parents die, right? In front of his eyes, point blank, right there. So there's this trauma that hit his mirror, and that mirror cracked up, and now his reflection is not perfectly fine anymore, right? There are some shrapnels in the picture, some things that are pointing in different directions. So the whole picture doesn't really make sense anymore. It's kind of twisted. It's kind of a bit creepy, right? So it's incomplete. When you're badly damaged, you're incomplete. Something is missing. You're thirsty, but you can't quench that thirst. It's like Tantalus, right? And in the 80s, in the Greek mythology, he always tries to reach for the figs. He tries to nourish his body. He's so hungry. He needs to eat, and then he sees these wonderful fruits just hanging there, but he can't seem to reach them. So that's his, never-ending torture that he has to suffer, because he was doing some bad business with the gods beforehand. So in a way, when you have those badly damaged characters and you have to kind of constantly tell their stories and how they react and how they change and how they are perceiving the information, and they still go on, and no matter if they are getting hurt or not, that character in the confines of the reality in which the story is placed, the imaginary life, the imaginary circumstances, has to, of course, disguise his badly damaged inner soul, his core. In a way, he has to disguise them. Otherwise, he can't work in society, because we all need to disguise, mask, and cover up our identity, our true soul, our true essence once in a while, right? When we are working, we're on a job, when we're traveling, sometimes out there, we're playing, we're putting on a masquerade. And I think the double meaning of that masquerade, of that disguise that constantly goes on with us, society, and with the characters that we kind of sometimes hide from the world, like Elia Kazan once said. That is a very interesting part about the Batman, and why it is so important to actors and to the acting endeavor. Because if there's one thing that is truly difficult, it is to kind of express something when you're hiding under a mask, when you need to portray and transmit emotions to the audience in a way that they get really hit by the emotions. The audio scratching? I'm sorry, guys. Is this still scratching? Hello, hello, hello. Maybe just by moving something, we can fix that. Is it better now? Let me know. So when we are playing characters that need disguise in order to function, to need to operate in the confine of their boundaries, of their world, and we have a literal disguise on as the actor in the scene, just to being able to express your emotions through what you're saying, but most importantly through what you are looking like. To, your eyes are the only source when you're wearing a mask. Your eyes are the only possibility to show the audience what you are thinking, and how you are evaluating things, and what is really driving you, and how you want to react to certain things. So that kind of very reductional way, that way of concentrating every single pore of your concentration, every single cell of your critical mass, to reduce that to the extremity of your eyes, and really having the ability to transport and transmit information, emotions through that, and really let people come in and follow you, and never be annoyed or bored by what you're trying to show, about what you're showing. I think that is a very, very heavy task, and it's it's big part of the acting craft, to act with masks, and to exercise masks. All still scratching? Hello, hello, hello. It's not getting better. No, still scratching. Let me see here, here, here. What? Back on. Is it still scratching, guys? Let me know. It's better? Okay, cool. Thank you so much. I'm really sorry. It's live and direct. That's the proof. Yeah, sometimes. Okay, cool. Let me know if it gets worse or better. Yeah, to wear masks, and to understand how you still can be able to be the character. Because once you realize that you are the character, whether or not, still scratching, whether or not you're wearing the mask. Is it better like this? Trying to just uplift things, let me know. I'm just moving cables around, maybe that works. Maybe like this. having that capability is is it better? Let me know. Having that capability of just being the character, whether or not your face is hidden from the world, that is what acting is about. It's the behavior. It's not per se if we can we can see your face all the time. It's about if you're believable as a character, and that, yes, it happens through the words, but it happens through your posture, through your body behavior, through how you move, through how you perform, through how you kind of turn around, how fastly or hastily or slowly you do, how well you know what you look like. Scratching again. I'm sorry, guys. That's really miserable. I'm sorry for the bad audio quality. All right. Yeah, I should maybe use. Yo, hello? I'm just trying something here. Hello, guys? You can hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, 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 hello? Still scratching? Okay. Let me know if that works now. Okay. So guys, I'm sorry if it seems to be a technical issue, and yeah, I don't wanna do this if the audio is not playing out perfectly, then it's not fun. So we will work on that. We definitely will fix that. So far, I think I've said enough anyways, and you kind of get my point of the importance of what body behavior, body language, of how truthful we can act if we're just reduced to that minimum, if we really understand our environment and interact with our environment and act correspondingly to what our understanding of our environment is, then we always have a very believable, very intense character that is putting us forward in the story. Whether or not that story sometimes is perfect or not, it's not important. It's about the character believing the ongoing process. So here I really appreciated that, and I think that's a very, very important part of our craft that we should always consider when we're playing our characters, especially when they're when they have these kind of split personalities, when they have these twisted ways of seeing the worlds, and so many deep rooted and seated traumata kind of move the character forward. Then it's always like a very demanding, challenging task to bring this character forward, to make him likable and understandable at the same time. And this is what's so fascinating about Batman characters, and how they change throughout the time, and how they're also adapted a little bit, but still timeless. And so I want to leave you with that, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I'm sorry for the bad audio quality in the end. We will fix that for sure. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, to leave us a like, to leave us a comment if you like the Batman, if you are intent or eager to see what you thought of this video. Also jump to my website. It's the COACHMC.studio, and just send me a beautiful email with the upcoming project that you got in mind, that you want to work with me, and maybe we find out we're a great match and we can do something great. And also my Instagram, it's the COACHMC. See you next time, guys, with the next video. I keep you posted about all activities. Have a great time. Always create something amazing. Thanks to all the people here in the chat. Thanks to the fans, the followers. See you next time, guys. I guess now you're ready to perform.